All right, it's 10 o'clock, so I will call the meeting to order. I'll start with roll call. Jefferson County Representative,
Here.
Madison College Representative, Citizen Representative Jen Christian,
Here.
and then Lake Mills School District Representative.
Here.
Okay.
Drake, Sean
Yep.
Marquardt from Madison College just signed on.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have a quorum, so then I'll move on to approval of minutes from June 26, 2023. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
Waymeyer, second.
Thank you. Motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, Dustin, I'm going to kick it over to you for review of the public record and joint review board responsibilities.
Thank you. I know most of you, but I'm Dustin Wolf. I'm with Mead & Hunt. I'm the city's consulting planner. I am just going to hit some high points here. This is the schedule that we have developed, which just highlights the statutory responsibilities for distribution of materials and such. Early in April, all of you should have received correspondence from the city notifying you of this meeting. That's a statutory requirement. Generally included in there is the public hearing notice and a map. We did notice for an April 23rd public hearing at the Plan Commission. That publication happened on April 4th and April 11th. Similarly, we had your joint review board notice was provided to Lake Mills Leader as well and published previously. Let's see, the hearing again at Plan Commission coming up will be obviously open to all people in the public to provide comment. Today's meeting with you is a kind of very straightforward responsibility. There is no action required at this meeting. This is informational only. We try to provide you as much information and detail as we possibly can. Later on the agenda is scheduling a subsequent meeting following, should this be approved by the Plan Commission and the City Council, to bring it back to you for a formal action. I don't know if there's any question on the record to date. Okay. You just want me to keep going, Drake?
Yep. So we can move on to move on to review proposed TID number 9 project plan and boundary.
Okay. I'm assuming everybody had received via email a copy of the project plan. Again, it's in a very complete form, made available to you, but also to the public, provided by the city at City Hall and then online. I'll just ask you kind of flip to page 6. If you're following along, you can look at the screen. If this isn't large enough, please let me know. I'll try to make things bigger. I never know what others are seeing. But this proposed district number 9 for Lake Mills is the industrial park. This was formerly TID number 2, which closed a few years ago. Much of this, I will say, was TID number 2 that closed years ago. And currently, part of it is TID number 6. TID number 6, you can see kind of the purplish, pinkish outline in there. Those are the lands that are in TID number 6. So most of this is going to overlay TID number 6 to help serve or to enable further enhancements and additions for some facilities in this corridor. A little institutional knowledge, the industrial park, when it was built, wasn't really put on the best land. So there are a lot of lowlands, a lot of soft soils, a lot of isolated wetlands. And the TIDs have been used to help deal with I'll say filling wetland areas or alleviating environmental issues and paying for those mitigation costs associated with that. They've also obviously been used for various projects we'll talk about in a second. But there were bad fill in this area, and then again, a lot of low lands. But there's so much investment in this area now that we can't really move the industrial park at this stage. But this will be a fully industrial TID. It is intended to stay industrial. Probably 80% of the lands will be industrial for their lifetime. As you can see, it's on American Way. It kind of is between Enterprise Drive and Industrial. It will extend south on CP Avenue, which would be presumably extended to Unshaven Lane and State Highway 89 or South Main Street. In this area are a number of vacant lands that have not developed because of some of those environmental issues that we've talked about. The city does not have other industrial lands in the community available, so it does really need to prioritize attracting manufacturing, employment development to this area because it does not have any other place in the community to direct industrial development to. So Horizon Manufacturing is located in this area. The city's got their light and water building. There's you can see that the Hammerhead and Selgin are the larger buildings. They are not included in this district, but they were part of the original TID number 2. But it is kind of an overlay, as I said, of the existing TID 6 because it's about halfway through its life, and to really attract development, need more time frame for this. The hopes is that ultimately TID 6 might be able to close early, but I don't have a specific projection on that for you at this time. Are there any questions on the boundary map? I just wanted to orient everybody before I kind of hit some highlights of the project plan.
I have a couple of questions. This is Tanya Olson, the district administrator for the school district. I see that parcels 1, 2, and 3 are school district property, which were slated, for a possible new school sometime in the future. We have already done soil studies on that, approximately 2021-22, came back fine. I'm just wondering if now this is going to be zoned industrial, how does that affect us? I mean, that affects any kind of future uses for a potential either new school or any type of developments for the school district, as well as one of the parcels we do have an agreement that it must be used for school purposes. So if this would be zoned industrial, that agreement would have to go back and be changed by all the mutual parties.
Drake, if I can respond.
Yep.
Establishment of the TID district does not change any of the zoning. It is not expected that we are going to be rezoning school properties to a use or to a district other than what they are looking to do out there. So there should be nothing involved with the TID district that would impact the future use of your properties, school district properties, and nothing that should violate the agreement of the land transaction that occurred with the UNCES many years ago. We've included it, as we'll talk about with projects, we've included because there are proposed projects. A priority project is the extension of CP Avenue south to cross the Glacial Drumlin Trail, and ultimately the development of Unshaven Lane, which is a partially dedicated right-of-way, and it's really the driveway for the church, for St. Paul's Church right there. But Unshaven Lane would absolutely be intended to serve the school district properties in the future. So that's why these lands were included.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Absolutely. I don't, Drake, there's other things you want to add?
Nope, you got it.
Okay. With that, I'm going to direct you to page 5 of the document. This is the series of tables that talks about TID capacity and the ability for the city to create this. Overall, the city, you've seen table 1, the city has an equalized value of about $900 million. That allows for about $108 million to be tied up in, of equalized value to be tied up in TID. Table 2 is the list of all the existing open TIDs right now. Their creation years are in parentheses so everybody can see that. It's usually a question that comes up, understanding kind of when they'll be closing and such. TIDs 3 and 4 have a few years of life left. We'll expect them to be closing soon. TID number 6, as we talked about, is about halfway through its life, which isn't great for attracting development or for some of the significant infrastructure projects that need to be undertaken at this juncture. The total capacity right now, about 7.5%, is being used for TID. Table number 3 kind of highlights the rest of it. The assessed value of the lands in TID 9 are about $10 million. So that's the base value. You'd continue to receive your tax percentages based on that number. That wouldn't change. That'll be the base value of this district. If this is created, the resulting remaining capacity of about $30 million or 3.3%. So we're well under the 12% test. And especially knowing that in the next few years, a few TIDs are going to be closing, we should have more capacity available. Any questions there? All right, then I'm going to ask people if they're following along. Page 23 of the document, don't confuse that with page 23 of the PDF, page 23 in the bottom corner of the document. I'm sorry if you're looking on the screen, this will take a second to scroll down a little bit. This is going to be the development assumptions. This is our little bit of crystal balling on what we think is going to be happening based upon conversations that have been had with property owners and developers in anticipation of a TID being created to address some issues. The first part that you see is Project A. Project A is an expansion of a very large expansion of one of the manufacturing facilities. That's really the impetus for this. There are considerable environmental issues that need to be addressed. To expand their building and site, there's a fair amount of wetlands filling, isolated wetlands filling that would need to occur there. The permitting for that had been previously completed with the DNR and the Corps of Engineers, but the project didn't move quite as fast as was anticipated under TID 6. But those costs are still going to be borne if there's filling. It's somewhere around $80,000 an acre to fill wetlands, and so anticipation would be using some funds for this, but then there would be potentially some development incentives. This is a large employer for the city, and to help them with their 200,000 square foot facility expansion to try to retain them within the city. Project B is a manufacturing facility that has been discussed south of the Light and Water Building. This is another building that says they would be doing some spec buildings. And again, you know, some of these things are predicated on TIF being in place for potential incentives to offset increased construction costs and the like in this area. If they can't make the numbers work out, then suddenly we lose out on that I think it was 150,000 square foot facility. The last two projects there are actually not industrial projects, but multifamily projects, infill projects within the community. These are developments that have some infrastructure improvements that would be public infrastructure improvements that would be necessary. Small creek crossing or drainage way crossing for one of them, and some roadway extensions to serve them for the other. But you can see, based on the timelines that have been provided there, we could expect within a 5-year period to be generating about $50-odd million in new value out there. The retention of jobs is really kind of and the increase of jobs is really the larger driver for from the city's perspective. But there is a housing component, which is why I'm saying not all of the TID would be manufacturing, but approximately 80% would be for industrial manufacturing activities. This is crystal balling, obviously. We do, on an annual basis, review the TIDs internally, and then, of course, with the Joint Review Board to talk about its health and projects that are occurring. As each year goes by, we always get a clearer picture of where developers are at on projects. but right now projects are kind of in limbo because of the issue with potential TID not being available. The standard things that I'm sure Ben is aware about, one community being played against another for development incentives and the like. And so putting a new TID in place from the city's perspective at least gives them the opportunity to have frank conversations with developers about these potential projects. Any questions on the development assumptions? Otherwise, I'll flip back to page 19, which is the projects map, the potential projects. This is a key driver here for this TID. The priority project for this TID is the extension of Unsaven Lane, of CP Avenue down to Unsaven Lane, and Unsaven Lane to 89. So that's this kind of project here. Sorry, the map got a little pixelated as we tried to zoom in, but CP Avenue is kind of this green line extending south to Unsaven Lane here, and then going westward to connect to 89. As I said, it's kind of the driveway to St. Paul's right now, but we would expect it to be the main this infrastructure to provide a key connection to the industrial park. Right now, the only way to get to the industrial park is to drive into the center of town. You have to drive to downtown and then come down Water Street to get there. That's not exactly the most efficient way when people are heading southbound traffic. It also doesn't give us a great alternative route for trucking traffic and commuter traffic. This has been a priority project for the city for, I will say, the better part of 2 decades. It is an expensive project for them to undertake, which is why it hasn't happened to date. But with the potential of these, this TID being created and these projects coming online, it could undertake the borrowing to make that project happen, and to open lands outside of the TID on the south side of town, around St. Paul's and around the potential school site for future development. That's extension of utilities and roadway access where there is none to date. There are flood storage improvements highlighted here. There are stormwater management improvements here. There is some various bike and pedestrian improvements, connections to along our existing road network, but connections to the Glacial Drumlin Trail to connect neighborhoods, ultimately to get to a school site down there. Could include intersection improvements in 89 at Unsaven, depending upon what's necessary for safety. There are a couple of off-site, outside of the TID, but within the half-mile type projects that are being proposed here. The most notable is to finish the American Way roadway extension and utilities to Harvey Road. Again, that'll provide a secondary eastern access to that neighborhood, to the industrial park off of Harvey Road as well. I can flip to the project list that shows costs if you like, or if there's any questions on the project map, I'll try to answer them as best I can. The city staff working with Strand, their consulting engineer, put the project list together and the project costs that we can talk about in a second.
I have a quick question. This is Tanya Olson again. Obviously, when we were planning to build a new intermediate school out there, which we are no longer, have immediate plans for that, we were working quite closely with the city and the construction and development of Unsaven Lane. So I just, I guess I have 2 questions. One is, looking at the map, seeing Unsaven Lane, if you are extending the plans for CP, would it Unsaven come across and then up to the north and then cut back across on the border that I'm seeing on the map? Is that kind of the tentative plan?
I'm going to try to draw a better line here for you, so give me a second. It would stay, Unsaven Lane would extend straight east from 89, where the driveway to the church is right now. But in essence, Unsaven Lane would be this. This would be the kind of extension. So here. Yeah. So it would not impact your property. Now, paying for it, the TID can pay for a certain portion of it. Decisions on financing for these infrastructure improvements is something that gets determined later by the city council. TID could pay for any or all of it, in any percentages. The city may pursue grant monies to offset certain project costs, and it may do special assessment if necessary to complete certain projects. So again, the project plan talks about the variety of mechanisms available. We do talk about borrowing for some initial projects, but ultimately, when a project is undertaken, it is determined by the council at that time how financing of that project is going to occur. All decisions on projects are made based upon the health of the TID, the fiscal health of the TID, of course, based on those development assumptions. So I don't want to say that all 100% of all projects will be paid by the TID, but it certainly is anticipated, and I'll turn to Drake on this, that the TID will pay a considerable share of some of these key infrastructure improvements to offset any other dollars that would be necessary from special assessment or other sources.
Good, you read my mind, because that was going to be my second question about who is going to pay for it. I'm just going back to the original agreement, with the Unsaving Lane, which is obviously, we were working with the city on, a grant a couple of years ago for the development of CP and Unsaving. That's the only reason I'm asking. I was just kind of looking for clarification.
Drake has more to add, but it's been my understanding with the city is that they're going to look at a variety of funding mechanisms, combinations of funding mechanisms to make these types of key infrastructure improvements happen. Again, this has been a priority project, but an expensive project for the city to undertake. So it is anticipated that there will be a combination of funding mechanisms. Is there anything else on the project's map? I can just show the project list just so you can see that and the costs associated with it. That's on page 17, so if you scroll up a couple pages. As you can see, the project list that's been put together by the city staff and the consulting engineer do try to provide some understanding of timing with phases. The CP Avenue is a priority project, but it does take a little bit to get rolling. You can see that it's kind of in the middle band here, the road and utility extensions there. You're talking $5 million in project costs to do that. It's a considerable dollar amount for a community size of Lake Mills to take on, which is why TID is really an important driver for making that happen without using general levy dollars. But flood storage projects, there's certainly some administration costs in there. The extension of American Way to Harvey Road is highlighted there. Again, annually, it is expected that the city would evaluate which projects it can undertake based upon the health of the TID and any other funding mechanism it may have available to it. That does not mean every project listed here will be undertaken. But this is a list of the key projects that would be desired to serve the TID and then ultimately to the betterment of the community. Any questions on this? I'll ask you to flip to page 24, which is the kind of increment projection. That's kind of the meat of the pro forma here. I hope this is large enough for everybody to see. The TID uses some very conservative values when putting together the project pro forma. So in the upper right, you'll see that the base tax rate, which is last year's tax rate, is 1771. There's no appreciation factor brought into this. I think we can all agree that land and values have gone up steadily, but this pro forma does not include any inflation increment being projected here. So again, very conservative. As we look on the left columns here, you'll see the construction year and value added. That's from that development assumptions table from page 23 that I highlighted. Again, if these slip a little bit, if projects slip or values aren't met, obviously that as you start moving across the table, you start to see it would have some impacts to tax increment. But based on these assumptions, that orange column kind of on the right side is what we would see for tax increment. As all of you know, there's about a 2-year lag from when a project is completed before it starts paying taxes and money actually going in the coffers. So projects that are constructed in 2024 don't get valued until 2025, and we're not collecting taxes on until 2026. So a little bit of a lag there to undertake certain projects, which is why certain things might have been delayed, as you saw on the projects listing there, to make sure that the monies are in place. As I said, city will evaluate whether or not borrowing should be done, to what extent to prioritize certain projects, but that would be dependent upon development agreements with various projects within the TID that we had talked about. So we had shown about $11 million in total projects over the life of the TID. Based on this increment projection, you could see about $17 million in an increment being generated. Again, this is crystal balling. When you're trying to look out that far, really it comes down to what are those development assumptions and how close to the head did we hit the nail on those. These are values that get evaluated every year to see what is happening out there in relation to the driver of new value, and then tying that to potential revenue generation. I don't know if there's any specific questions to this. Again, this is predominantly to be a pay-go type TID. Very minimal potential commitment for borrowing up front by the city on this. A lot of infrastructure is in place, but they do know that to make certain projects happen, they will have to make maybe offset some wetland fill costs, some development value costs, and to try to get some of this key infrastructure in. Any questions here? I'll scroll down. Next page, as I did say, there was maybe a modest potential borrowing in the future for some of these projects. This shows potential funding mechanisms. These are provided by the city's financial consultant, Ehlers. Again, crystal balling here at this point of various funding types, general obligation bonds, maybe some municipal revenue bonding for certain project costs. On the front end, it is looking at making the Horizon project go from a borrowing perspective. That's still in negotiation, but some of those dollars could be shifted if they're not earmarked for Horizon to other project costs. Page 26 is our cash projection. This is a very long table. I'll probably ask you to try to look at it more on your own. It's a tough read here when I'm trying to present it. I'll see if I can maybe zoom in a little bit more. But in essence, it's taking those increment projections and tying it to that financing plan to show how cash flow would work out based upon that specific kind of borrowing or development plan. Again, this is something that gets evaluated annually by the city and their financial consultant on what's the best mechanism to handle these things. This is, I would say, an ultimate build out, if you will, and probably not the most likely scenario that would occur, but it's to give an idea of kind of the largest potential borrowing and projection associated with it. The last table that will be in here that's not in here at this time will be table 28. That's that impact to taxing jurisdictions. That will be an annual a table breakdown annually of what the potential impacts to each of your taxing jurisdictions would be based on these development assumptions. Again, that's a little bit of a sliding scale depending upon how much value is created in a specific year. But it is something we'll provide to you with the, I'll say the final project plan for you to review and potentially act upon at the end of the the statutory process. Ehlers is still working that out. In a nutshell, that's what we have for you on this. Again, it's a 20-year TID for industrial purposes, as we talked about. I don't know if there's anything specific that you would like me to showcase. I can go back to the map just for people to orient themselves.
If there's no questions, Dustin, do we talk about the schedule for what's next?
Yes, absolutely. So we would need to schedule another meeting. It is anticipated that this is going to go to the city council on May 7th. So we'd be meeting after May 7th with this group again. Just found that it's easier to try to schedule it at the meeting than via emails when everybody's on here. I will say selfishly, my week of the 8th of May 6th is very booked. But the week of the 13th is open. Are there any dates that the city would like to prioritize? Is there any dates that absolutely do not work for Joint Review Board members?
Should avoid the 14th.
Okay. Do we like Monday the 13th? Or is that a bad day for people?
It'll work for me.
I can make the 13th work.
Okay.
13th is fine with me.
Yep.
Okay.
Works for me.
Do we like the 10 a.m. time or?
That works for me.
That
Okay.
works.
Yep,
works for
10 is
me.
good.
Okay, so 5/13 at 10 a.m. and we'll send out a calendar invite just so it's placeholder on everybody's calendar. We will send you a revised project plan in advance that will show resolutions from the Plan Commission and the Council should they adopt it. And then we will provide you with the draft resolution that would need to be approved by the Joint Review Board in advance of that, so you can review it and if there are any questions.
And then Dustin, Plan Commission holds the hearing but doesn't take action. City Council has to approve it to move forward. And then if City Council approves it, then Joint Review Board has the final approving authority on the 13th, after which you certify with the state, assuming it gets approved.
Yes. So just a clarification there, Drake. The Plan Commission will need to approve a resolution to send it to the council. The certification, the state has changed kind of their schedule. They don't want to see any certification documents till after April 15th. So yes, following, if you were to approve this, we would start assembling certification documents, but we would not be submitting them till August.
Okay.
Again, I appreciate everybody's time. If there's any other information you need, please let us know, and certainly let Drake know, and he'll inform us.
All right. If there's no other items for the agenda, I'll declare us adjourned at 10:33.